Hello and welcome everyone. I notice my light's not that great on me right now. I'm not going to mess too much with it because I don't care that much. So welcome to Dev Chatter. We are going to go ahead and get started here. I want to apologize in advance. I've got a little bit of a cough, so I will attempt to mute if I'm actually going to cough loudly. But for the most part, feeling pretty okay, and want to make sure we get in a good stream today. So, anyway, so as I said, I'm Brendan, this is Dev Chatter, and we are having fun writing some C# code. Most of what we're writing is .NET Core, because why not use the new cross-platform fun stuff in C#? So that's primarily what we're doing. Right now our application is a console application. I mentioned we were doing a chatbot, but we're expecting at some point that we're going to grab a web interface on this, so we don't have much in the actual console application anyway. Most of our logic is split off into libraries so that it's easy for us to move around and figure out where we want to put it. Part of the reason why we're going to be doing a web interface is that tools like OBS, which are streaming software, and the Streamlabs OBS, blah blah blah, all of these tools that allow us to stream to Twitch, YouTube, Mixer, wherever it is you want to put your content, they all take browser inputs. Hey, Gleaming Sloth, welcome. So, because they allow you to have a browser as your input and essentially overlay a browser window somewhere on top of your screen, what you don't see right now is there are actually a number of browsers being shown on screen right now. So if you see that little jar in the lower right hand corner, that is actually a browser source. So there is a web page pulled up there that has a transparent background and shows that little glass there. And if anyone goes ahead, if anyone clicks the follow button or subscribes, cheers, donates, anything like that, you'll see a big animation right in the center that's also done with the browser. So part of the reason we expect we're going to have to put a web interface on this at some point, even if that's not the primary interface of our application, that's an easy way to get content displayed like that. Now, a lot of these tools can take input that's based on files and other things like that, but I mean, we already have ASP.NET Core is already built to do this kind of visual display that we need anyway. So we're likely to take that route. Okay, so a couple of things I want to get through at the beginning that I do want to mention. So as I said, welcome everybody. I wanted to take a little bit of time and just talk for a bit while people are coming in, because I do know that we're going to get more viewers showing up since we are just starting. So welcome everybody. We are about to be looking at a pull request that we actually got in. That was actually a pretty nice one from one of our viewers. So I think I mentioned yesterday I had a bit of a brain fart when we were working on the Shoutout Command. So I want to talk a little bit about the basics of commands in Twitch, just so that it makes sense to you guys. In Twitch, and actually not just Twitch, but a lot of chatbots, they accept commands. And the way these commands are going to work is a chat message is put into the chat room, and it is prefixed with an exclamation point. So you guys can't see it on the video right now, but if you are in the chat room, I'm going to go ahead and put in a chat command now that our bot will respond to. So I'm actually going to start up our bot here, and it's going to be connecting to the chat room that you guys are actually in. And what I'm going to do is just put this in here, and you'll notice that when I typed exclamation point coins into chat, the response that we got back is from the dev chatter bot, and that is actually what our bot is connecting to. So that's how that works. and it just replies back. We actually have 2 bots in our chat room. The other bot is a Streamlabs bot, which is a former Ankh bot. And if you type in points, that's a command that it understands, and it'll respond to that. So anyway, the significance of this is that we set up a shoutout command. Hey, Swifty Spiffy, sounds good. Yeah, I will catch you in a bit. One thing I do want to mention that Swifty pointed out to me earlier today, I adjusted the times on our panel widget. So if you were looking at when the stream was going to go live, about 30 minutes ago, I updated that. It didn't switch with the daylight savings time switch, so the extension we use for the panel down below the stream, so down there, if you're on the website, that just got updated about a half hour ago. It was saying our start time was going to be an hour from now, so that was not correct. We obviously, because it already started, but I think you figured that out. Anyway, sounds good. Let's see. So the thing I wanted to talk about, we set up a shoutout command, which is a common thing in Twitch. When another streamer enters your chat, you might give them a shoutout. So for example, if I did a shoutout to DevChatter, the bot's going to respond back and say something like, hey, yeah, we love DevChatter. And that's a nice little thing that we put in there. And the reason I bring this up is that when you're in these chat programs, a lot of times you want to autocomplete someone's name, so you don't want to mess it up. So you might type in an @ first, and then type in their name, and it'll autocomplete for you. Well, the problem is, if you have that @ it would be in there. So we needed to remove that. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up that code really quickly. So we made a little string extension, and we said, hey, we're going to put this on string. Hey, Magnus, welcome. And we said that for any given string, it's going to be really common that we're going to want to remove @. So we just put this in here. So anytime we have a name, you might want to remove an @. We may also write an extension very similar to this that forces an @ to be there. And we also want to make sure that there's only ever one. So when we add one, it's added only if it's needed. So the reason I bring this up is what we had before was a crummy little thing that did a substring and just yanked off the first bit if it was an @. And it was suggested that we instead do a trim start, and it'll actually remove all occurrences of the leading object. So normally when you do a trim start, you do that to remove white space at the beginning, but we're also able to use it to remove any given character. So in this case we said, hey, remove all instances of the @ from the beginning of our string, and this was sent to us by a user who I don't remember his exact Twitch name. So if you're in here, it's Mr. Magoo, like Sequel Mr. Magoo, I think is the name that he goes by. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that and send out a thank you, because that was a nice pull request that came in. Anyway, so we put that in there. But we're talking about the SO command, which we set up there. So someone had suggested we wanted to avoid having an error if someone typed in the SO command and didn't specify anything. So right now, if we type in SO, which I'm actually going to pull up that command now so you guys see our shoutout command. It's very simple. We're using an in-memory database in EF Core, which I can talk about if anyone in chat wants to hear about in-memory databases in Entity Framework Core. But that's actually why we're reloading the data each time. Every time we run this application, we actually have a completely fresh database. So we're filling it in with data at the beginning of the execution, which is kind of an interesting approach. Okay, so we have this simple response message here. And what we do with it is we're basically looking for a command of SO, and this is the response that we have. As an additional parameter, we then said we're going to grab the argument set for this action, and we're going to pull the first argument and trim off the @. And we're doing that here as part of the format string that we're going to be using in here. Sorry, my brain just blanked there for a second. So when we do this, we're going to make this a format string. The reason we don't use string interpolation here is just that it would be tricky to get this value string interpolated into here. Not to say it's impossible. I'm betting we could figure out an approach where we would use it, but that's not something that I want to put our time into right now. So if someone can figure out how to make that a little nicer for us, that would be an awesome pull request that I would love to have in here. But before we get to that, I want to talk about the suggestion. So right now, if we do a shout out and don't specify any additional arguments, so this piece is left blank, it's just not filling in a value for the URL that we want to link people to. So what we want to do instead is say, pick a random one from a set that we like. So I'm going to go ahead and show you which set we're thinking about showing. So if you go to our follower list, so if you're over here on dev chatter, so we're going to get our nice sequence, and if I wait here long enough, you're going to see me pull this up on the screen again and again and again, and see infinite me all the way down, which is going to be kind of weird. But what we're going to get here is we have a list of people that the channel follows. So if we click on the following list, you can see some other people that stream on Twitch. And that to me seems like a good self-curated list that we can just add followers to that. So how do we get this list, you might ask? Well, that's not very difficult. We actually have access to that through the TwitchLib API, which is why on Saturday we were taking a look at the TwitchLib API library to see if we could connect it to the Twitch API. So the Twitch API is actually set up in a few different versions. There's version 3, version 5, and the new one, Helix. We're not really using Helix yet because it's not completely fleshed out, and even the TwitchLib library, the open source library we're using, hasn't completely set it up. So I want to show you guys what I set up. So we have a call, and I'm going to show you how we do this here in a second. You'll notice right here that just for debugging purposes, I printed out a message inside of this. It says current follower count. That's hilarious that it says count. I'm going to go ahead and fix that right now, because that's hilarious. Everybody's laughing at me. Okay, so I'm going to toss that on screen now, and you can see we listed out who our current set of followers are, or who our current follows are. We are following these people, dev chatter is, and I think it would be useful if we just did an SO that it just grabbed a random person from this set. So what we're going to do is wire that into that command. So we don't need this little debugging one here that we were doing. We know this works. Let's take a look at how the follower service works, because I did change this without you guys. On Saturday, when we were trying to connect, we were calling the version 5 API, and we were passing in our username, which is actually what caused us a little bit of a problem, because we were supposed to be passing in our user ID. And so that's actually why we were getting errors on Saturday. So we've adjusted that, added in the user ID instead, and are now calling into the API to grab our current set of followers. So that's what this service is for. So if we take a look at how this service works right now, what we built is just a simple method that just says get users we follow. Right now I did not write it as an async method, however I could make this method async because our get user follows async method is obviously async. But I wasn't too worried about that because I was just sort of hacking it into the command line in order to make it work at all. And so now that I know that that works, I'm not too set on the structure that we put here. So essentially, inside of the TwitchLib libraries, specifically its Twitch API class, they built a convenient handler that will call out to the Twitch API, passing in the appropriate header and making the call to the correct location, and just do a simple API call for all of the follows that a user makes. So that is the set of people that we follow. Okay, so we follow that those people. We want to choose a random one of them and then display it in that command. So our command right now is very simple. We have it set up just as a simple response message. Now, I don't think that's going to be the piece that we want, because I don't want to set up these simple response messages to know anything about the Twitch, to know anything about follower APIs and things like that. So I think we need a different kind of command. I think we need a little bit more complexity here. So let's see what we can do, because and the reason I specified that is that I don't want these ones, which are simple and have a basic response, to get any more complicated. So let's see what we can do with it. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a command, and I'm just going to call it a foo command right now, because I really don't know what I want to call these things. I'm not sure what they are. I'm not sure how specific I want to get. So a lot of times when I'm programming things, I don't like to really come up with a name until I know exactly how I'm going to build it. So start simple, man. Start simple. I know that foo command is wrong, and I can easily check and make sure that I'm not submitting, not committing code that has something like foo command as the name. Excuse me. Okay, so I know that I want my command text to be SO. And then, in addition, let's see, Enigma, can you tell me how do you enable the reference, authors, etc. in top of functions? Oh, where did these come from? So it says one reference, and then says who wrote it, what the changes are. So that is called CodeLens Enigma. And CodeLens is built into Visual Studio, actually, but it is not in the Community Edition. So I could switch over to the Community Edition and show that, where these basically won't appear. But if you're running either the Pro or the Enterprise Edition, you will get those. And that's actually true whether you are in VS 2015 or VS 2017. Both of them should have CodeLens if you are running that version. And if you do want to check out those features, you're actually able to grab the preview versions of Visual Studio, and when you get a preview, you are able to run the Enterprise versions without a license, so that's a nice way to do it. Hey, welcome Admiral Trap, thanks for following. So that's one approach there, but yeah, that's CodeLens is what's showing that. So it's a very nice feature that got added in. Okay, so my foo command, I want to be able to work whether we're talking to Twitch or to Discord. It should just be on by default. Enigma, are you running VS 2017 Pro or Enterprise versions, or are you running the Community? It would be under code. There should be something about CodeLens. Yeah, CodeLens, there it is. So if you go into options, type in lens. Okay, yeah, so check it out in here. I'm not sure if you can get CodeLens running on Community, but if you see it in here, you should be able to get it. So, yeah. That's the problem, is they didn't put it in community. That's one of the ways that they did that. I was thinking, though, that you might still be able to install it. Community. I don't know. I'll Google how to enable CodeLens for community. Let's see if it's possible. So, well, there you go. Apparently, you were at one point able to add that. Not sure. Either way, if you grab the community, if you do want to get access to those sorts of features, just in your development, run the preview editions, and you should be able to see it there, because the preview editions will let you install the Enterprise Edition. So, anyway, so what I was saying is, I want this command to be able to be accessible, and if you still have questions, Enigma, let me know. I want this to be accessible whether we're talking to Discord or Twitch or Mixer or YouTube, whatever chat we connect to. I always want to be able to have this, so that's why I'm putting it in the core. These commands make sense to me to be in here, so I'm going to go ahead and put it in here for now. We're, again, going to keep it called foo command. Not really for any great reason other than, you know, it works. We want this to be able to be stored in our database, and we set it up so that we had a base type that gave us our ID and a status for whether or not it's draft, live, etc. And so we put that on data items, so we're inheriting from those. The next piece that we want to do is, since we know this is some kind of a command message that the bot's going to receive, we have a command interface we're going to put on here, and that's going to get us this text. So the other thing is that some commands might be triggered in other ways. There might be something else with messaging, but we do know that we're always going to want to have a chat client for whichever service triggered it. So for example, if someone triggers from Discord, we want to respond on Discord. If someone triggers us from Twitch, we want to respond on Twitch's chat. So that's why it's important that we receive the client that we need to respond to. The next thing is we get the arguments for what triggered it to happen. And in this case, that's going to give us our list of information. So I'm going to move our entire shoutout command over here, which means that this one needs to have the same type of function that we had in our simple message one. So what that means is foo command needs two constructors, and the reason we need two constructors is this. Entity Framework is going to build these. It's going to want an empty command in order to create this object when it pulls it out of the database, and it's going to assign all the values for us. But what we need is this function. So in order to do that, we want to start off with the same one, and I might end up inheriting from that other type, to be honest. We might have foo command inherit from the other type of command, or we might extract a common base from them. They could be abstract. I'm not sure yet. So this function that I'm going to grab here, static response. Oh, yes, we are going to need that. Okay. So we have our command text, we have our function, we have our static response, and then inside a process, we're going to do this. So I'm just duplicating the other one for right now, and the reason I'm doing that, I'm not planning on keeping it as a duplicate, is we want to get a couple of pieces out of this. We want to be able to do the same extraction of data that we did in the first one, where we grab who the caller was. And so I'm going to jump back over to our fake data, and I'll see here that this is right here, grabbing the caller name on this one. No, not the, yeah, sorry. grabbing the argument value. This one right here, not the caller name, grabbing the argument value. So essentially what we did in our simple response message is we allow ourselves to grab whatever data we want off the argument as a little method that we do here. So that's what we do for the first one. The next thing that we want to do is to make it so that we can pull data from the follower service. So the follower service could be a Twitch follower service or say a YouTube follower service. And it's tough to say which one we actually want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and wire this up using the Twitch follower service for now. But I'm not sure where I actually want to connect it. We could do it when we do process and deviate from this structure and say that sometimes we need to have the API as well. So for specific types of commands, we could make that an optional parameter that each one has. And I think what I want to do is change the signature of all of these first. So I want to switch these parameters, and I'll show you why in a second. So I'm thinking, well, no, because we want sender to be first. Okay. I want to have access to a follower service here, but I don't want to put it on this one. So it feels like I need access to some kind of an API call or something like that. But I don't really want to put it here. So I think what we're going to want to do is make a special type of command that pulls in this value. So instead of inheriting directly from data item, we might inherit from something else. For now, what I'm going to do is just add it as a parameter on here. So let's go ahead and add an iFollower service and go ahead and say follower service right here. And we're just going to put it in for now. I'm not sure if this is where it's going to live long term. Why is that complaining? Oh, just because it's never used? Oh, because the one before it was a... Whoops, I didn't notice we had two default valuing ones here. Sorry, guys. The things we forget sometimes. That's funny. I didn't even use those. Did I seriously not use those in the other one? That would be hilarious. I may not have. No, I did. They're right here. I just didn't wire them up. Okay. Yeah, I seriously need to have this thing inherit from the other one. It's gonna need it. Because there's no reason not to at this point. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add a field underscore follower service. I'm actually going to toss these up at the top next to it because I think that's a nicer structure for it. And I'm actually going to toss command text up there as well. So we now have a constructor that is an empty one so that we can just set values. And then we also have one that takes in all the possible parameters. The empty one, of course, only exists for Entity Framework to be able to create this object and hydrate it with the data that it pulls out of the database. So now that we have access to a follower service, we can use it inside of our process method. So because of that, I'm tempted to add another type of function here that can somehow use that value. So in this case, I like the idea of having the selector take in the event args, pass back a chosen string, and then we say if the resulting value of the selector is null, so that would be our selected value here. So if our selected value equals null, then I want to use my follower service and grab a random follower. Now, yes, I know this is not the way that we're going to have this in the long run. That's why I set this up as a foo command. It could be that this is a custom command that we do and is not going to end up being reusable and only exists for this case of having a follower like this, having a select a random follower type command, at which point, you know, we'll figure it out from there. Okay. So, let's go ahead and choose our random person. So, this should get us a list of the strings of all of the channels that DevChatter is following. So, in C# we can create a random number and select it. So I am just going to say new random. And then say random. We'll just next based on users we follow. I'm going to put this in a method here in a second. Random index, and then our selected value will be set equal to the users we follow and random index, and that should get us a randomly selected user from our list of channels we follow. So I mentioned that our foo command should probably just inherit from the simple response message command. Everything except for process works pretty much the same way. And then there's this piece that's what to do if we get a blank. So okay. So that's how we're going to do that. So I think this builds now. Assuming it does, we are going to take a look at the fake data. It does not, because I did not finish wiring up this piece. Did this switch and I didn't switch it back? Yes, it did. My Control-Z didn't work, apparently. That's why these other pieces broke. Okay. So I'm going to steal this message, make it a foo command instead of a simple response command, and then okay, so we put this as a parameter requirement on the command at this level. Now the challenge is at the creation of fake data we don't have access to one of those, so the injection point where we included our follower service is not going to work. We're not going to be able to put that in the constructor with the way that we're building our commands. So I'm going to remove that from here. Makes me wonder if we need to put it on process for this. Or if we need to add this to the commands when we're doing our publish, which I think it's going to be the latter. So we're going to have to do property injection, which makes me want to create an initialize method. And I'm going to do that. So I'm going to make an initialize method, and this is relatively common to do an initialize method on something like this. So essentially we're saying we need to call this first before we use this. Now, if I were really careful here, I would put a guard clause at the beginning of this just to make sure that our follower service had been set before we get to the point where we attempt to process. So I'm not going to do that right now, though. Okay, so we're now calling our foo command. We're going to need to call initialize in it, and what we're going to do to make that happen is this. We are going to go to this list down here. We are going to add in our get foo commands. So we're now doing that. Now in our bot, we do a couple of things. I don't think we will need access to our follower service, actually. And the point that we're going to use this is actually when we set up our initial messages. So we did a couple of things. We did interval trigger messages here, but the other set of messages that we used were the commands, which I think are initialized inside of our command handler. And I clicked on the wrong thing there. You'll see inside of here, yeah, so we go through and when we receive a command, we check to see if our commands include that one, and if they do, we process. So, what I am going to do is make our initialize method actually be part of the command interface. Now, in most of our cases, hey, looks like we just got an auto follow from C# Fritz, so I wanted to make sure I welcome everybody that came over from there. We are working on a C# chatbot. It connects to Twitch right now, but we are planning on connecting it to Discord, YouTube, and maybe Mixer and other places. So, welcome. Hopefully you guys have a good time here. Okay, so I mentioned that we were going to have an initialize method. And for initialize, we're going to need to pass in specific sets of data that we might need. In the case of our foo command, right, we didn't name these yet. We don't know what this command's going to be, but we wanted to pass in this dependency as a value that this one needed. Now, I don't want this to necessarily be on all commands, but I think it makes sense to have some kind of an initialize method on each one. Yeah, sorry about that, man. I will be careful about saying the word foo so that no one gets hungry. I know it can be confusing when someone says foo command. So, I don't think it can go on there like that. I think we're just going to have to process the one that we've got and set it up. So what we're going to do to make that happen is we're going to go to the command handler. I want to do the initialize on this. So command handler, first off, has all of its chat clients, but it also has, with the chat clients, an associated follower service, potentially. So I like the idea that the follower service is only going to respond on the one that's related. So I think what we want to do is make it a list of the enum iChat client and follower service, and then say, so that's chat client, that's funny, item 1. Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted the name to be, thanks. How did you know? You're brilliant. Right, give me a list of that enum. That is fantastic. Alright, we're gonna call it item 1 for now. And I'll fix that name in a second. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so if we pass in our iChat command, and for anybody that doesn't know what I just did, that is a tuple, which is a new addition in C# 7, I believe. Tuple tuples have been in the language for a while, but they were, oh, I should say they were not in the language, they were in the framework. But now they're actually part of the language. Yeah, food bar. The good old food bar, you guys can go up to the food bar. They have salads and pizza. As it's not Friday, we'll have meat on the pizza. But on Friday, for any Catholics, since it is Lent, there will be cheese pizza also as an option. Okay, so we set up our command handler. The next thing that I want to do is I want to initialize all commands that need to have a follower service on them. So we set up those. Messages. Oh, wait, maybe they need all follower services. Yeah, I'm going to yank that out, because I just realized, even though I do want to have those lined up, I can't actually do it yet. So what I'm going to have to do is have a more advanced structure. I'm going to actually have to have a service that contains both, and that's the only way that I'm going to be able to do it. So we'll make that adjustment in a little bit, but for now we're going to leave that out and just go with the simpler approach, which is this. So I'm going to do a for each, and we're going to do a bit of pattern matching here in C#. So let's take a look at how this is going to work. So I'm going to go over the commands that we just passed in. So I don't want to do simple response message. I kind of do, but I don't want to. So I'm going to put that in there. So I want to say is foo command. Now remember I mentioned I wanted foo command to inherit from the other one. So that's the only way that's going to work. Then it would be follower command handler with follower service. Potentially Janiscu, but I'm not sure if we're going to need a follower command handler specifically. I think we're just going to have a basic command handler and initialize all types of commands inside of our command handler. I'm hoping that we can make it work this way so that we don't need one for each type. So we'll see. So I'm going to have this inherit from that type. I technically don't need the interface on here anymore because the simple response message already is an I command message, but I'm going to include it anyway. The next thing, I want to remove all the pieces that I know are in that one as well, and then I'm going to change them to be protected because they were private in here, but I want to be able to reuse them down below. So we're going to make the static response and the selector both be protected so that we can access them from our foo command. Because they're read-only, I can't set them here. So what I'm going to have to do is call through to the base and use its constructor. So I'm going to pass in command text, I'm going to pass in static response, our data item status, and also our selector. So all the parameters that go down to the lower one are getting passed in here. So that lines up perfectly. In fact, I don't even have to set that one. If you're not familiar with this syntax, essentially you can call through to a base constructor of any object. You can also call through to your own alternate constructors. So for example, I could call this and pass in the default set of values this way, as opposed to setting my defaults as assignments like this. There are some differences there, but that lets you have more than one in your overloads. Okay, so we're then going to call initialize if it's a foo command. So let's jump back to our command handler. Did I get everything I needed? This process is going to override the other one, which I'm going to go to the parent class and make this virtual. So I'm setting that to be virtual so that I can override it here and it's not just overriding it. And this is probably complaining. Wait, what? Yeah. Okay. So I am calling the process method here. You'll notice I'm not calling the base at all. And the reason for that is that I don't want that one to trigger that value. I may eventually adjust it so that we can reuse more of the process method here, but in its current structure we're not going to be able to. If you guys have questions about that, I can show you why that is. I just don't want to, get into it if you're going to get bored looking at that stuff. So, but shout it out if you guys do have questions. I'm always willing to detour and talk about any of this stuff because I do love C#. So, I am always enjoying this code. Okay, so I put in this little restriction. I said this command message is that. It's not actually going to work the way I want it to. So I wish it would, but I don't think it's going to. So what I'm going to do, and now maybe I can make it work. So I'm going to say if command message is a foo command, then I'm going to say foo. I'm going to say initialize, and I'm going to pass in the follower service that I don't have yet, but I will. So I'm going to need a list of follower services, and actually I just realized I need to grab a list of them, not the individual ones. That's a good point. Whew. Maybe I do need to make more than one of these. So if anybody calls for that. No, follower service is only one. Yeah. I'm smoking something, guys. I'm smoking something. I don't know what it is, but it's clearly good. You're right. I have to have a follower command handler. You win, Janiscu. You win. Because I need a Twitch one. It needs to be a Twitch follower command handler. I think we originally had one, but I got rid of it. But I believe you're right. So we'll make a Twitch follower handler. And I almost wonder whether this is going to be a Twitch API handler. But we'll see. Ah, the complexity of having, of wanting to connect to multiple services. Let's see, Twitch, so it'd be an follower handler. Gonna create that interface, but we're not gonna let it live here. We are gonna go take this back to the core project and put it inside of events, make an interface. That's the name of it. Okay. So now our follower handler is of one of these. Because we're going to need to have follower handlers for any different type of connection we make. So, our follower handler is going to need, and that's funny that I just closed that, a constructor that takes in the same parameter set as the other one was taking in, which is we need to have the Twitch API, and in this case we can actually just specify the Twitch lib API because this is already living inside of the project for Twitch, so this is the piece where we're actually hitting the metal. The next thing that we need to pass in is our foo command. And this may end up being a Twitch API handler, actually, instead of the Twitch follower handler. Yeah, let's rename that. Okay, so I changed to an iAPI handler because I think we're going to do things like subscribes and follows from this, so not just one or the other. So we're going to call this foo commands, and the reason I keep sticking with this word foo is because when we do our rename, I want my rename tool to be smart enough to come in here and fix all of these. So right now, because I left the name as foo because I don't really know what this is going to be yet, I am allowing it to continue to be foo everywhere. So that's the reason why, is because when I do a rename, I want it to be able to find all these, and it's going to be looking for foo everywhere. So our command handler assigns those values, and then for each is over the chat client and sets up those. But we don't have a chat client, we have our API, which means we need to set up our commands based on the types of things that they would respond to. So our foo commands also need to have access to the chats. So, because that's how we're going to trigger them. That is hilarious. Okay. Chat clients. Okay. So, and I apologize about my sniffling here, guys. Got a little bit of a cold. For those of you who were here at the beginning, you probably heard me mention that. So I said I would try not to cough too much into your ears through the microphone. So if I have to mute at some point, I will. So we're going to do our chat client, and we're going to say on command received. Whoops. I want to do this as a method. Thank you. Okay. So when we receive a chat message, let's figure out what we want to do with this thing. So now that we're over here, we're dealing with only foo commands. So these are ones that we know need access to our Twitch API. What I want to do is, and I'm going to keep this simple, I'm just going to go through each one of the foo commands and give it the API. So this is the Twitch API handler. So this one should only be getting the Twitch client. There's the difference. There's the Twitch chat client's the only one this one should be getting. I knew I was doing something weird here. And I meant to do that. Twitch chat client. So in our Twitch chat client, we are going to do an on command received, and then we are going to say foo command dot initialize, and we are going to give it our follower service. That's a good point. It's going to get our new Twitch follower service. It's not going to have the API. That's why we were having it take in this one. Okay. I'm going to rename based on that. Did you guys remember that? That's fine. It's like, you're going to lose this. Okay. Hang on one sec, guys. I figured you'd appreciate me not sneezing on you. Alright, I'm back. Sorry about that. The problem with streaming while sick. Alright, so we have our new follower service, which we're going to just assign into there, which means that we no longer need to set the API, because we're not sending that in. We're going to switch this back. This is going to be the follower handler. because that's why we're doing the follower service there. So again, we are switching back to the idea that Janiscu was correct. Or I should say even more correct. Still as correct as always. So, as I said, see, renames are easy, so if you decide you need to go a new direction, just do a rename. That's why we still have that thing as foo. That's nice and simple. Okay, so we're passing in our set of commands. For each command, we're initializing it, and then we're setting up our connection. And then we're going to say, down here, I'm going to go to my command handler, the original one. And actually, I think that we could actually process based on it now. We could be one of those, I think. If we make this an I command. Are these not I commands? They are. We cannot convert from those to those? Really? They are those. Am I smoking something here, guys? Maybe I'm crazy. Am I going crazy? I don't think I'm going, I don't think I'm going crazy. Maybe I'm going crazy. I mean, it's entirely possible. Okay. So as we did with our previous one, we're going to call through to our base. We're going to pass in our same set of chat clients to that one. And then we don't have a list of commands to send in, except that that one, did this do anything? Or could these have just been simple commands the whole time? Those could have been I commands the whole time and I didn't need to do anything? Oh man. Okay. So this is the standard command handler, does nothing special. When it processes, it does what it's supposed to do, which means our command handler could actually be using this same one as long as we did our initialize before we called the command handler with this set of commands. So let's go to where this command handler was called from, which is going to be here. And this set of messages is going to be a list of I commands. So we grabbed this set of data, which is not that type actually. So I'm going to actually make them simple commands, simple response commands. Actually, I'm going to leave it as it was as a var just because that's kind of a complicated thing. This is not going to work right out the gate because foo command is not set up in our data context yet in Entity Framework, but that's fine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up our list of I commands. I command message. Is that actually what I wanted to do? Is that seriously why it was complaining this whole time? Okay, and we're going to call this commands. And I'm going to make this list I'm going to add our command messages, and then I'm going to add our foo commands, I'm going to rename this one to simple response messages. Whoops. I hit a keyboard shortcut I did not mean to hit. So I'm going to make that simple responses and foo commands for now. We're going to put them both in here, and then we're going to pass the commands. And actually, I might just call this all commands. So we're going to have all commands be the aggregate of those two lists. Putting them together, which, yes, I know there's like a bajillion ways I could do that. Feel free to suggest a way if you don't like the way I did it. But I put them together. I'm thinking that foo command needs to be defined with what it is right now. So I think these are follower commands, follower-based commands. It's something to do with followers. So it's kind of convenient that we started off with the letter F even, but so we're going to say follower command instead of foo command. I'm going to search the solution for foo commands. I cannot believe it didn't get these. Let's see. It's funny, I did all that so it would get these. It didn't end up getting them. How's that for inconvenient? Let's see. Foo commands. Underscore follower commands. Hey, it got that one at least. Okay. So I don't think we actually need our follower handler, our Twitch follower handler, I think is what I was saying. Because I think we can use the same command handler every time, as long as we've initialized before we call it. So this we call the follower service, which we need before we call our command handler. So I'm going to put it all the way up there. It makes sense to set up the Twitch follower service and Twitch API up at the beginning, so that's where they're used. And then what I'm going to do is for each of the follower commands, I'm going to give them access to this, which I don't really like, but I don't have another way around it right now. So that's what we're going to do, is just give these things access to it, because that's about all we can do for them right now. Okay, so now that they have that, they're just going to be inside of the regular command handler, and they should be able to respond to those. Now, I mentioned that we need to make it so we can save them, so I need to go into data, not that data, the infrastructure data for EF, inside of our app.db context. I need to set it up so that we can be storing these. So follower command is now follower commands. I just realized I left this name the way it was at the beginning. So this is simple response messages. And actually I even want to change that name still, but I'm going to get to that later. Okay. Let's go ahead and run this and see what it does right now. Because the bot really could be doing almost anything. Keep in mind we're on a branch, so anything we don't like, you know, we're not really breaking anything. That's what source control's for. So we're just kind of having some fun. And actually, so that is running now. I just wanted to confirm we don't have our old SO. We only have the new one, so we'll see if this blows up. It might. If it does, that's not a problem. Just gets us more information. Hey, cool! It randomly picked. So that worked perfectly. So check that out. If you just type SO, it should randomly pick one. And it is. Okay, neat. Give it a shot, Janiscu. So what did you say here? You said one way to do it What I can think of is to make the iCommand handler, and then, if needed, specify command handler, then implement it. Yeah, see? It's randomly picking from all the channels that DevChatter follows. So, that's nice. I am definitely going to commit that. We did the feature that people wanted us to do. But before I do that, I want to make sure that I got rid of all the foo stuff that I left in here. So I'm going to do a quick search of that so foo command doesn't show up. Foo might. Because we had foo as some data that we're ignoring. So that's awesome. And it works for both you and me, Janiscu. So there's one other thing I want to change related to that. I want to make it so that specifically you, Janiscu, and by that I mean not specifically you, I was kidding, that the SO command can't just be called by any random person, because I don't think someone should be able to show up into the chat, type !SO and the channel name, and have the bot endorsing some other channel. That seems probably like it's ready for abuse, and considering that most of the channels I know do SO as their shoutout command, I think a lot of people could guess that and just show up and, spam that to get bots to respond with it if they allow it. So I said I was going to do my commit, so I'm going to do that first. And this is going to be on... Oh, what did we call this? This is random shoutout. I think that's a pretty good description of what we were building here. So we're going to do random shoutout. I'm going to go ahead create this branch out on GitHub. And so you guys can see what I'm doing. I am just so part of the reason I'm using GitHub Desktop here. Oh yeah, significant other. Yeah, I mean that is an entirely legitimate acronym there, Ringazing. Ringazin. And I'm probably messing that up, and I apologize if I did. Anyway, I'm just going to commit from here. We actually made a whole bunch of changes. I have actually looked through most of these, so I do know what we changed. Hey, welcome. Thank you, Jester98X. Thank you for following. So what we're going to do, yeah. Yes, there are a whole bunch of acronyms for SO. But within Twitch, it's pretty common for that to be a shout-out. So anyway, we're going to add in a random shout-out selection. Because I thought that was a pretty good command to add in. I don't know about you guys. And then I'm going to send that up to GitHub. So what I was saying, the reason that I'm using GitHub Desktop is because I can keep that GitHub Desktop to just what we're doing on stream. That way any other stuff that I do is in other clients. So that lets me restrict just to what we've got on stream. And it's pretty nice. For most of the stuff I do within Git, I do jump to a command line, but things like committing and, a simple push like that, I'll just do it in the app because I don't have to do anything there. And I never commit without looking at a visual diff of what I'm sending. So I don't like committing straight from the command line without at least having pulled up a GUI for the diff, because I think it's a little bit better for seeing change sets. But that's just me. You can take whatever approach you want, but most devs I know like to do the combination of a GUI and command line. Okay, so as I just mentioned, Janiscu and I were both able to call SO, and I think that's silly. I think there need to be some commands where we restrict who can actually trigger the command. So let's take a look at how we do those. So we made follower command, which we said it was a simple response message, which of course is an iCommand message. So we call process and we pass in the command received event args. Now I can almost guarantee you that this right here, the command received event args right here has information about the user that triggered it. And since that information is going to be in there, we can see if that person is a mod in the channel. And we could restrict it so that our call can only be used by a mod. Now, mod is going to be a different state depending on whether we're on Twitch or something else. So let's go ahead and start by getting the idea that there is different user levels. I want to make an enum for this, and I'm thinking user type might be something. So streamer, I think, makes sense to be a user type, and I think mod, follower, all make sense, as does everyone. And I don't know whether or not we want this to be an enum. This might end up being a more complicated object. It's actually pretty easy to switch. I don't know if many of you have seen that concept before of using objects instead of enums. So you can sort of fake that it looks like an enum even though it isn't. And I can show how that works later. But for now, I think that set will do just fine. Excuse me. We aren't really storing anything in the database, so I'm not even worried about the fact that like an enum is going to have an assigned ID and I haven't actually put the value on there. Because this is going to be 0, and if we reorder these, it'll change, but I'm not worried about it. So I could assign it to 1, but I don't really care right now. So what I want to do is I want to go to chat user here. We have display name, but what we don't have is any concept of their type. So we're going to say user type. And actually, now that I think about it, I almost think you need a set of types. Maybe it's their user role instead of their types. So user role, streamer, mod, follower, everyone. Maybe they have a set of types. User has a set of roles that they're in that we create. I don't know. What do you guys think about on the structure on that? We could just, I mean, we could easily just, say like is mod or something like that. But I'm not a big fan of that either. So I don't know. I could be convinced though, because it's simple, and simple is nice sometimes. I guess simple's nice most of the time. Let's see. Get rid of some of those. I don't need them open. So we are adding user role to that. Let's go to where we create our chant user, which is going to be in a to method because we're pulling this out of some other object. So command received event args is pulling a chat user out of our source command. So I am going to put this in here. And our role set is going to be a new list of roles. And in that list of roles, we're going to add an item if one is needed. I'm going to give him the everyone role, because everyone's everyone. But then, what I am going to do is say event args, chat user, roles. And I am going to add, whoops, not add range, just add a new, not a new role, user role, streamer, if it's the streamer. So let's see what source gives us here. So what role would someone who doesn't follow you have? Right now, just everyone would be at least what I'm calling it. They would just be in the everyone. which seems like a valid role to have. I mean, it's probably totally unnecessary. I'm just kind of stubbing this in for now. So we were saying that we want to take a look at... Is it going to be on chat message? Okay, chat message is broadcaster. There we go. So if we're the broadcaster, we're going to add that role. And then command, chat message. Oh, that's funny. Is me. So we can detect if we're the bot. Is moderator. So we are going to add user roles mod. Yeah, so I'm sort of going along that route where user can have multiple roles. So my intention is that what we end up with in our user role list here is sort of like a ranked list. So streamer can do it, mod can do it, and actually, you know what? I need subscriber for subscribers. I can show you some of the Visual Studio extensions that I'm running in here. I'll bring them up in a second. Let me finish the thought that I'm working on, though. Okay, so we're giving everyone, and then we're going to add in these few based on that information. Now, I'm already feeling like this needs to be a nice little conversion, where we pass in the chat message. So I am going to pull out chat message as a separate thing. That is our command chat message. And then the next thing I want to do is have this role collection be created on its own. That way, our actual work in adding these can be pulled out somewhere else. So I kind of feel like we need to make a method that creates our set of roles, because I think that's going to be a little nicer if we have a little helper that does this. So we're going to extract a method, and we're going to say get user roles. Okay, so I think that gets us our basic set. We can add the other ones later for subscriber, follower, etc. But for now, I think that gets the basic idea. So that is a reasonable stopping point for this. So I will show you the extensions I'm running. I've got a handful of them on here. So one of the main ones that I'm actually running is ReSharper, which you can actually already see here. But I'm also running the productivity power tools, which you'll notice I have that little spot there for it. And the way that these are set up in 2017 is actually that the power tools install a set of other tools. So it's not one extension. So that's actually why you're going to see so many extensions in here. So all these ones that have this little icon here, that is one of our productivity power tool ones. So you'll see I've got like quick launch tasks up in the top right, which is super useful. There's power commands, there's timestamp to margin, shrink empty lines. So if I turn that off, you guys will notice that I'll get a little bit of extra spacing between my lines. So that's just making things a little bit more compact. There are other few things. Peak help. Some of the peaking stuff that it does I've actually got turned off. It has copy as HTML, which is a nice way if you want to paste in some formatted stuff as HTML. This is much nicer for it. And then it does some other just little things. These are the other ones I'm running in here. So not terribly many. Some of these are just in here by default, a lot of the Roslyn stuff. But then I've also got Resharper, which I mentioned before. I am a fan. I've been using it for quite a long time, actually. At least a decade I've been using Resharper. I don't always have it running in Visual Studio. For quite a while I was running without Resharper, but at least on some computer I have it all the time. So, yeah, I am a big fan of Resharper. It is actually quite nice. I have used CodeRush in the past also. That's one of the competitors. I've also used Just Code. They're, you know, I see no reason not to grab some extensions. The one downside that I hear from people is that sometimes they reduce performance a little bit because they are a little resource heavy. The extensions tend to grab a lot of resources when they do their work. Now, obviously, every one of them is going to point out how awesome their performance is, and specifically, you know, for certain scenarios, one or the other might be better at them also. But I mean, as devs, we tend to go buy a beefy computer that can handle whatever we want anyway, so... one of the neat things that you guys might not have noticed that is coming from the power tools, if you look up at the top, my tabs for these files are differently colored. They're actually color-coded based on the project over here on the right that they're coming out of in our solution. So they're also then grouped by the project. So they're alphabetized and grouped by the project, which makes it a little easier to find. So in this case, all of these gold-colored ones here, they're all coming out of my core project. This little light blue here is coming out of the bot project. And then that one, the EventArgs extensions, is coming out of the Twitch project, that little light green there. And I can actually customize all the colors for those as well, which is really cool. So, and that's Productivity Power, the Productivity Power Tools. That's just a free extension that you can put in, and there's no cost to it, and it lets me do things like this. So if I do present off, you guys can no longer read any of the text. This is my normal font size. So you guys don't get to see that anymore because normally, you know, screen resolution font size, we can get away with this. But then all I have to do is say present on, and it turns on presenter mode, and suddenly you guys can see again. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, so that is one of the nice things, Janisku, is it really makes it obvious when you're crossing the boundaries of different projects in your files. So to answer your question of other extensions being compatible with Resharper, the Productivity Power Tools and Resharper can be used together, but you are going to run into problems and have to do some configuration because they do overlap a little bit. So you need to pick which one you want to win, and I think the best way to do that is to reapply one after you've, like, once you've installed both. If you like, the order you install them is going to matter. I think the one that you put in last is usually going to win, and you might have to disable a feature or two of one or the other to get them to play nicely. So, for example, I actually have a peaking feature of the Productivity Power Tools turned off so that I can continue to use part of Resharper. So they don't always play nicely, but sometimes they do. Okay, so jumping back in this, I am going to add our next role to this user by doing an is subscriber, which has got to be on there. Okay, it is. Cool. And then I also want to check and see if they're a follower, which I'm hoping it gets me, but I'm not confident that it's going to be able to pull that from the chat. We can't. Okay, so we can't detect that one. Hang on one sec, guys. As I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, and if you didn't notice it from my voice, I do have a slight cold, so I am going to be sneezing every once in a while, and I will make sure I get muted before I sneeze, because otherwise that'll be loud, so give me 1 second while I blow my nose. And we're back. Alright, sorry about that, guys. Just wanted to make sure I got my nose blowing done without you guys, because I figured you didn't want to really be involved in that part. Yeah, no problem. We are here to talk about code, so bring up whatever you guys want. I mean, this very much is the discussion. We can talk and look at whatever you guys want, so bring stuff up, make suggestions, and we can talk about whatever you like. So for now, I don't think I can easily grab the follower status of this user without calling out to something else to get that information, because that isn't coming from chat. It's not saying whether or not they're a follower. So we can get whether or not they're a subscriber. We can't get whether they're a follower. So we can see if they're me. We can check and see if they have different badges and other things like that. Oh, subscriber month count. That's interesting. So you can see how many months they've been subscribed. Okay. So I'm going to put those in there. For now, I'm going to go ahead and remove the follower role, because we don't have a way of getting it in Twitch easily anyway. So I don't think we need to keep it there. So if you guys disagree, let me know. So user roles back in. So we're assigning those based on that. We grab a bunch of roles, we put them on here, which means that we can now, when we are processing a command, we can restrict based on user access. So I kind of feel like I want to do this at a higher level. I feel like I want to do it at the command handler instead of at the process command itself. So we've already gotten the correct args here. We should have, I think. Where do we do that switch? This is mine, right? Yeah, that's mine. So we've already done the switch, so we know who the user is. So I almost want to do a check and say, can user run this? So we're going to say private bool can user run command. We're going to pass in our chat user, and then we're going to pass in our command. Command message command. So this is the command they're attempting to use. That's the user. For now, we're going to return true. Good enough. So we grab the command, and then I'm going to say can user run command. We're going to say e.chatUser, and then we're going to say command message. And we're going to wrap this in an if. Power Tools wasn't too smart about how we wanted to do that. I thought we wanted to wrap it that way. Okay. So if they can run the command, we're going to do it. Otherwise, we are going to respond back by saying chat client dot send message let's go ahead and string interpolate this. We're going to say sorry, and then the user who attempted to do the command, so we're going to say e dot what? Oh, do I not have what? I have E? Okay. I don't know why it didn't give me IntelliSense there. So we're going to say sorry, so-and-so. You don't have permission to use... and then we're going to put in the command. The blank command. And this is going to be e.command word. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and tell them, hey, you don't have access to do this. So right now we did this as an enum, so we should just be able to do a comparison. So we're going to say user dot roles. We want the minimum role, which is actually an interesting thing. Maybe we don't need their full role set. Maybe their role is going to be whatever their top one is. So we set it up before adding that in, but I'm thinking we're going to give them whatever their top one is. I think that makes sense. So top role. We're going to make this method instead be get top role. So that'll be whatever the highest role is that they have, which means if you are the broadcaster, you return that one. So if you're the moderator, you return moderator. And whoops, if you are a subscriber, we're going to return subscriber. Otherwise, we're going to return everyone. Okay. How did it work? Get top role. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and grab that one. At this point, we don't want to grab the minimum role. We want to grab their role and say if their role is less than the command role required this needs to have a user role required. So that'll get us what role they need to have. So they need to have a role that is less than the role or equal to the role required in order to run it. So I'm just going to straight up return that for now, because we don't really need it any more advanced than that. So we're just going to wrap it in here. So we're going to say if the user can run the command, do that, otherwise display that they can't run it. So now we need to actually give them that value. Sadly right now we cannot have default values that way in an interface, but we're about to be able to have some nice stuff in the next version of C#. Version 8 is supposed to change how interfaces work so we can have defaults in them, which is really going to blur the line between an interface and an abstract class. So it's going to be really cool. So I'm going to implement that here, and I want this to be set as a constructor property, and I want this to also have a default value of everyone, so we don't actually have to specify it everywhere. Okay. So now I need to go to where our data was created, because I need to put this value on all of them. And actually, did I not change that setting? I want to change that. So I did something here. I set draft as the default. I'm setting that to active. That is a pain in the rear to actually have to set that every time on these things. Doop-a-doop-a-doo. Whoops. I meant to go from here to here. Okay. Actually, on this one I do have to set it, because our last one, I could actually make that a named one, couldn't I? This is the... Well, let me put this in here first. I'm going to set the role to everyone. And then... What is this called? Selector? There we go. Okay, now I made it a named parameter. So now I don't have to specify that on any of those. So Discord, GitHub, emotes, lurk, all of those seem like things that we'd want everybody to be able to run. So I'm going to leave them all that way. Whoops. So now I'm going to head down here. And on this one, modify its constructor to do the same basic thing. And that is going to be pass in our user role. And this is going to be a parameter from the constructor as well. This one I'm also going to set to a default value of everyone, because it makes a lot of sense for that to be an everyone also. So then down here, we need to put this in. So we want to restrict this one, because this is what we were doing. We don't want this one to be everyone. We want this one to be mod only. Assuming I didn't mess anything up, we should be able to do this. So Janisku, I hope you're still there. This is running. Let's give it a shot with me first, just to see if it works at all. Okay, so that worked with me. Someone else want to type in !SO into the Twitch chat there? So we just put it in there, and so you guys can see it. I'm going to toss it on screen for a second, too. Oh, and Janisku got it. And there it is. So, SO, sorry you can't do that. And look at that! And Malachi521, thank you for testing the other one. So, some commands are allowed and some are not. So, there we go. We've restricted based on role. So, awesome. Great job, everybody. Thank you for those tests. That worked perfectly. And actually, just to make sure, because I'm both the streamer and a moderator, so I want to do one quick test. I don't know if... actually, no. We had a moderator in here before. I'm going to set up another moderator at some point. We're going to get some other ones. But I was going to have another mod chime in. Wait, I'm a moderator. Who am I kidding? My personal account. So, hi everyone. That's also me, Brendonius there. I think I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, my name is Brendan, and I also go by the name Brendonius, so you'll find me on Twitter and things like that under the name Brendonius. But if I type SO, it should work. Hey, it works. Okay, so what that confirms to me is that moderators can do it, and everyone else cannot. So moderator and streamer can both do it. So awesome. Good job, everybody. That worked out perfectly. I think that it makes sense, since this is still the shoutout, that I want to put this on the same pull request that we had our last one on. So I am going to submit. I'm going to send this in with that as well, because I think it makes sense, since really what we were modifying was the SO command and making it actually do some work here. So it's really like improving the shoutout command, because our initial one was kind of basic. So yeah, see, and Janisku showing us our set of emotes. None of those work yet for two reasons. First off, Twitch has not approved our emotes yet. They're taking a while approving them. And the second reason is that the bot is not a subscriber to the channel yet. So once the bot's a subscriber, it'll be able to post those emotes as well. Our emotes do look really cool. Once I do this commit, I'm going to show you guys what our emotes look like. I do also want to mention that I have been talking with some other people about being guests on here. I have someone that does a lot of videos and training on Azure that is planning on coming on as a guest. And then there are some other people, Microsoft MVPs and the like, that I'm talking to about coming onto the stream as guests as well. So I do plan on doing a bit of that. I'm going to commit this as adding role requirements for commands and push that onto the same pull request that we were doing for our other one. I mentioned just now that I was going to show you guys what our emotes are going to look like. So let me go ahead and bring those up. I'll toss them on screen. This is assuming that Twitch does approve them as is and they don't need any modifications, but I don't know why they would need modifications. So this is our hype emote. So this little guy will be able to be used in chat. And then that'll be for any tier 1 subscribers, which if we ever do get to Twitch partner status, which is based on just the amount of traffic that's coming to the channel, we'll be able to have more emotes than that. But at the higher tiers, so tier 1 and tier 2, we will have a derp emote, which is just a nice one for whenever I do something stupid, and when I really mess up, the tier 3 one is going to be this really upset fail one. And yeah, I like the dinosaur with the little grabber things, so he's kind of fun. But if we do a partner one, I've got some other ideas for stuff that I want to do as well for our emotes, that I will be working with the artist to get us some nice things for it. They will all be nerdy and fun, so I figured I'd show you guys those. Hopefully we'll have them soon, and then that emotes command will be a little more interesting. Okay, so we are all set up here. Do you guys have any suggestions for other commands that you want to work on? We've got a little bit of time left today, so if there's something you want to specifically look at, work on, or take a look at in here, that would be awesome. I do want to add more of our connections to both the Twitch API and Twitch chat. I think that Swifty Spiffy might be in here, and Swifty Spiffy works on the TwitchLib project, which is the open source project we're leveraging for this.
What a lovely day!
Hey, welcome exclusive PR. Thank you for following. So, what do you guys want to work on? Don't all shout at once, guys. I make jokes. Because if you don't make suggestions, I will just go on writing stuff. Alright, I will just go on writing stuff. One other thing, I'm going to post the Discord link in chat there. So if you do want to keep discussing or talk with people during the stream, you can go there and you can chat on Discord. There are a number of us that are in there and have been talking about different things related to code. We talked a little bit about TwitchLib this morning, and some other people were talking about how their team rooms are set up and stuff like that yesterday. So good discussions in there if anybody wants to join. I'm obviously not going to be active on there while I'm streaming, but I'm betting a couple of people are. Well, there could be specified commands based on the user role. So you're thinking like you type in commands and it tells you which commands you're allowed to use? Is that what you mean, Janiscu? So we could have a commands command. I think that would be an interesting command. Now, what I find interesting about the follower command here is that it really is just one of those simple response message ones. Yeah, so Yep, see, bot's responding, working as expected there, as RizXTV can see. I do let you guys run some of these commands while I keep it going. And while we're on stream, we do sometimes have the bot disabled, so don't be surprised when you call for a command that it doesn't work. Actually, I think if we, you know, I'm not sure. If we type in commands right now, does the other bot respond? No. Okay, that's funny. Yes, that's right. You have points. Okay. Hey, make sure I didn't break everything. I might have. Let's see. Yep, I did break everything. Where did I break everything? Can user run command? Can user run command? I command message first or default when that. Oh, right. Yes, we can't do that. Right. Let's see. So I'm going to put the bot back on screen. Let's try that again, guys. Okay. I don't have permission to run another, which is not the correct response, but... okay, so we don't want to go any further if it was null to begin with. So, if command message does not equal null. And actually, I should have done this way. Here, let me show you guys. So I think this is actually what I'm supposed to do. There we go. So that was Power Tools stepping in. I don't know if you guys saw that, but I highlighted the piece that I wanted to surround with my if and then just typed in if, and it automatically put the text it had replaced right back in. So we want to ignore that because there wasn't a command to actually run. So before, we just weren't processing it because there wasn't a command. Which is a good point. We no longer need that. So we were doing a nice little safety there that we no longer need. Alright, let's try that again. I'm going to toss this on screen so you guys can see if it messes up. So that does not fail. That does fail, and that does work. Someone want to type in the SO command and just make sure that they cannot run an SO? And I'll leave this up here so we can see that it doesn't break. Hey, perfect, Jester. Yep, so you got your message that you don't have permission to do it. So that was good. Okay, let's see. So there's that. Something else that I was realizing that our bot doesn't do that it probably should, that I'm now realizing we should jump on while we have the time. So let me go ahead and commit that change that we just did there that fixed the null reference. And I'm going to send that out. But the thing I realized that we should do is when the bot connects, so we load it, it doesn't say hi or anything like that. And I almost feel like when the bot gets in there, it should announce itself, which is a nice thing for us as well, especially when testing it, because it confirms that it got in there and is working. So let's go ahead and do that. So what we want to do is go over here, connect chat clients, and inside of our chat client, which is going to be this one, we want to Twitch client connected we want to say hello or something like that. And actually, I'm going to get rid of that. Well, I don't know, we could... I really don't want to do that handler just yet. You guys see I have something in there that I've left in there for a while, which is I was going to wire up user joined. But I don't think I want to do that one, really. Twitch chat client dot send message. We are going to go ahead and say hello world. The bot has arrived.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Hey, welcome Moonbucket. Thanks for following. So, hello world, the bot has arrived. I think that sounds like enough to let us know that the bot has entered the chat when it has. Hello world, the bot has arrived. Nice. Okay. So the bot now lets us know when it gets here. So you guys will know when the bot has come into the channel, which is useful for you guys, especially when I'm testing something, because you guys are on a stream delay, so you have anywhere, depending on your connection and what app you're using, like 5 to 30 seconds of delay from when I say something to when it gets to you. So stuff I type happens way faster, so you'd know that I'd restarted the bot and could respond accordingly. Giving a command or anything like that. Okay, so one of the reasons I want to get people onto the Discord, so I'm going to post it again in there, is that Discord is one of the chat clients that I want to get us connected to. So we're not going to do that today, because we are reaching the end of our stream for today. We usually only like to do 2 hours for our streams. Keeps it nice and short, keeps us focused on something that we're doing. And then we'll probably do this sometime soon. I'm not sure if this is going to be tomorrow that we do Discord or later on in the week, as I do want to talk with Swifty Spiffy, who I know is still in chat. I'm not sure if you're lurking or whether you're actually here, but I do, when we're going to be making better connections to Twitch, using TwitchLib, I would like you to be here. So I will probably try to line that up so that Swifty Spiffy is here when we're adding more Twitch features, and then when we're connecting to Discord, we'll choose a time when Swifty can't be here. So that is the plan there. As I am no expert in TwitchLib, I have just started using it, as all of you guys were kind of fumbling through it together, which is, I think, fun. But either way, looks like our bot's working. It's running the commands we like, and I think it looks pretty good. So I'm probably going to start winding us down here. I want to remind everybody that we are going to be live the same time tomorrow as we were today, which is 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. And then we'll be on again on Thursday, but 2 hours earlier, so that's noon Eastern Daylight Time. So keep in mind the US just switched to daylight savings time over the weekend, so if you're not in the US, then like as soon as you switch, which I forget when various countries do that change, but different ones at different times, usually off by about a week. Thank you for following Sanders1819. Greatly appreciate it. Everybody else, if you want to catch the next stream, make sure to hit the little heart, the follow, whatever icon you've got in your app. Go ahead and follow this channel, and you'll be able to catch the next stream. So as I said, there's going to be a Tuesday one, a Thursday one, and a Saturday one. We start at 1 p.m. So they're all about the same time, give or take an hour or two. And I shifted around a little bit just so that more people can attend. I don't want to have it at the same time every day, because if that time doesn't work for you, then you're never going to be able to make it to any of the streams. And I figure if you can at least make it to 1 or 2 a week, then that is a nice thing for me to be able to do, and only one of them has to interfere with my lunch break, so, I'm good with that. And it gets so that we can have both Europe and most of the US at pretty nice times. If you're not in US or Europe, I apologize, it's tough for me, because I gotta make sure at least my day time lines up. So sorry about that if I can't line it up better for you. The few people we want to thank C# Fritz for hosting us today. And I want to thank the relaxdaily.net, which is the background music that you've got, which I hope you guys can hear. If you haven't been hearing the background music, just shout out at me at some point on any stream, and I'll adjust the volumes until you can hear it. But that's what we're listening to right now. And yeah, I do want to thank you guys for following, and I always want to thank our subscribers because you guys are awesome and wanted to support the channel. So if anybody does also want to, feel free. Once we have emotes, they'll be available to you. And yeah, I will catch you guys all tomorrow. So tune in again next time, and we will have some fun coding together. So enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and take care. Hey! Thank you, S. Vandenbrande? I am gonna mess up names all day long. That's kind of a thing. I will give it an effort. And if you do want to tell me how your name is pronounced, if I do mess it up, just let me know. Just hit me a message, whisper to me, or just type in chat and say, hey, Brendan, you messed up my name. It's said like this. And I will attempt to fix it. Trust me, I know. The name I use is Brandonius, so I've heard anything from Brandonius to Brandonus and, other various guesses. But names are hard. Especially since they're pronounced different ways in different places, so I'll do my best, but just feel free to let me know. I do not mind if you tell me that I messed it up. So, also, I should mention, this stuff is all on GitHub, so everything we work on stream will always be out on GitHub. Did I close the bot before I did that? Did I typo that? What's going on? Oh, yes, I closed the bot and then typed GitHub. Ah! Alright, dumb guy here. I literally closed the bot and then did that. There we go. Fixed. So all the code we do on stream is going to be out there. So if you do want to... yeah, exactly. The bot was sleeping. So if you do want to contribute, you can send us pull requests. You can send us issues. Whatever you want to do. If it's more than like a one-line change, we'll probably talk about it on stream and show it. If it is just a simple, I wasn't thinking for a second and checked in something wrong, then I'll probably just push it in. That's basically what we got from Mr. Magoo at the beginning of the stream. And if you didn't catch the beginning of the stream, you can always check out the videos section on here. And I am going to start pushing some of these to YouTube if I can. I want to make sure that there's no issues with Twitch and putting it to YouTube. So anyway, thanks everybody for watching. I appreciate all the follows, and I look forward to coding with you guys again tomorrow. So take care, and happy coding, everyone.